Hey, Scott from MrToolHunter.com here. Here happens to be Los Angeles, California. I am here for the week for some training, and as is my normal habit, about a week out I started checking on Craigslist to see if there was any woodworking equipment, primarily Shopsmith equipment, in the area. It's a pretty bad habit, actually. On a vacation down to Orlando, I had to break it to my wife one time that I had purchased a bandsaw, scroll saw, dust collector, a tool called what was that thing called? Crafter station, and a jointer, and that they would all need to be going back with us in our minivan back home. In a similar situation today, I located a machine called a Shopsmith Mark II. Now, the Mark II was kind of an unsuccessful product that came out after the Mark V was introduced in the mid-50s. Now, a little bit of Shopsmith history. Their first machine, very bare bones machine, was made in 1947. And until that time, until about 1953 to 55, somewhere in there, they introduced the Mark V. And that machine has evolved a little bit over the years, actually quite a bit over the years, but it's still available today. Well, there were a few other machines that they brought in to address very specific needs that folks were having, and I'm at an ATM machine, so forgive me as I conduct some business. Anyway, one of these machines was the Mark II, and the Mark II was introduced as kind of a cross between the Shopsmith Mark V and the original 10ER. Very stripped down, simple tool that would be less expensive for them to sell and less expensive, obviously, for a consumer to purchase. Very much an entry-level machine that could kind of sort of do all the same functions of the Mark V. Well, didn't do them so well. It was sold primarily through Montgomery Ward's, and in fact, they had their own version of it called part of the Power Crafter line. And anyway, so I located a Shopsmith Mark II here in the area, and I am on my way to take a look at it. And
turn left on Bellaterra, then turn left on Edinburgh Avenue.
And I'm reminded of a line from a Garrison Keillor episode of, what was it, the Lake Wobegon, News from Lake Wobegon, where one of the guys who was super handy had his parents give him a call and say that they needed him to come over.
Turn right on Bellaterra.
Come over and take a look at their septic tank. And he said, of course, take a look means actually do something about it. And that it was times like that that he envied the incapable. So anyway, I'm obviously not going to just go take a look at it. I'm hoping to pick this thing up. So we'll see how this goes. Now, then the question is, then what? I mean, I'm in Los Angeles. I live in North Carolina. This minivan is going to be filled with a bunch of coworkers shortly, and we'll be driving back and forth to our office this week. I certainly can't have a piece of Shopsmith equipment in here, so we'll see how this goes. You seeing what I'm seeing? So I met the owner of this machine, nice gentleman. This machine was his dad's, and he said his dad built a house or a cabin with it, and then that his brother inherited it. They lived somewhere outside of Kansas City at the time, and then when his brother years later said, hey, he was done with it and was going to pitch it, he said, I'll take it, and brought it with him to California. So we pulled the belt cover off, and I wanted to confirm this because I was pretty certain this was in fact made in Cincinnati, Ohio. So it went from Ohio to Kansas City to Los Angeles, California, and it will be on its way to High Point, North Carolina very soon. I just have to figure that out. And I have to do that before I start picking people up at the airport here shortly. What an idiot. Okay, first stop I had to make was to Harbor Freight, because for all I knew, I was going to take this thing apart. And, well, I probably still will. So I purchased, a $5 socket set, but also knowing that Shopsmith had this weird habit on their table leg attachment points of using square nuts. So I bought a adjustable wrench and used my free coupon to get some screwdrivers. Turns out we didn't need any of these things. What we needed was a 5/32 hex wrench and a rubber mallet. The way that this one is built, they really went on the cheap when they designed this. The tubes that the table attaches to the machine on all the other units that Shopsmith made from the Mark V forward, they have rack teeth machined into those tubes, and then there is a pinion that is cranked up and down. So you're driving the table, the main table, up and down really with rack and pinion. This one, you just have these smooth tubes that slide in, and then there is basically a threaded rod with a crank, and you turn that crank and it pushes up on a little bar that connects those two tubes. Not a great design, and a lot more places that you have to remember to tighten down in order to safely use this machine. But we'll get it back home. There'll be more information about this, and we'll play around with it once we get home. So thanks for coming along. Talk to you again soon.